Prior to this year's E3 2018, many PlayStation fans speculated that the convention would bring some news of Sony releasing a new generation console in the form of the PS5. But there was no news on that front. Rather, Sony's press conference was filled with previews of many of their highly anticipated titles. So that leaves the question, when will we get a PS5? PlayStation has yet to announce a release date or whether or not the system is even in the works, although it's pretty obvious that it kinda is. Yet it seems that the rumor mill keeps pumping out more and more speculations as time passes. But in order to answer this, let's consider PlayStation's history. Sony had a bit of a hard time with their gaming branch in between PS2 and PS3 consoles. The PS3 had a delayed launch, and it cost a pretty penny too, all of which are factors that gave Microsoft's Xbox 360 a bit of a boost. There was also an issue with the team at PlayStation not involving or having discussions with developers while working on the system. This led to a major change of approach for the PS4, one that has proven quite successful. Timing is also a factor that we can take a look at. The first PlayStation console was released on December 3rd, 1994. The PS2 was released on March 4th, 2000. PlayStation 3 was released November 11th, 2006, and the PlayStation 4 was released November 15th, 2013. So 6 years in between the PS1 and 2, and between the PS2 and 3. The delay and troubles account for the extra 2 years between the PS3 and PS4. So if the history is any sign, it's now around the time that Sony would be announcing that a new console was in the works. And it seems very likely that if it does get announced in the near future, we'd be looking at a release date closer to the holiday season, probably around November or December the latest. So what do we know now? We do know that the PS5 will eventually come into existence, that's for certain. Sean Layden, the president and CEO of Sony Interactive Entertainment America, confirmed in an interview at E3 2017 that the console is in fact coming, but that it would probably be some time before the company announced it. The past several months have been heated with online discussions as to whether or not the news of the PlayStation 5 console will be making headlines anytime soon. Some have speculated that this is because of the rumors that the PS5 dev kits were released. This could also be because of how old the PS4 currently is. The PlayStation CEP John Kodera told investors that the PS4 was entering the final phase of its life cycle after 5 years. And of course, the rumors could have just simply heated up, as they usually do when it comes to anything in the gaming industry when E3 approaches. But despite the convention now long over, chatter about the PS5 still prevails. In addition to this, a posting for Infinity Ward's allegedly upcoming Call of Duty game has triggered some rumors. The job listing, which was a hiring for a temporary narrative scripter, stated that the project was a new, exciting, unannounced game that was in development for multiple next-gen platforms. We know that Microsoft's next Xbox is in the works, and it wouldn't be surprising if both that and the PS5 came out in the same year. Considering that Microsoft's Xbox One X has dominant specs, surely Sony will need to compete with that. In terms of the console stats, we can look at the Xbox One X to see what Sony will try to one-up. The Xbox One X has an 8-core 2.3 CHZ CPU, with a 12GB GDDR5 memory and a GPU with 40 compute units operating at 1172 MHz. Now let's talk a little bit about speculations. Many people think that because of all of this, it seems likely that Sony will announce the PS5 at 2019's E3, with the release date being sometime in 2020, probably November. It would be good timing because the lineup of upcoming games Sony has at its disposal would be pretty stellar. At E3 this year, The Last of Us 2, Death Stranding, and Ghost of Tsushima were all previewed as PlayStation exclusives, none of which actually had release dates announced. It would be safe to assume that these games, which all have been in the works for a long time now, could be taking a little bit longer to produce, not just because of their anticipated high quality, but because they're being developed for PlayStation's next console. In addition to this, there's a few other major titles that have yet to get a release date, including Project Red's Cyberpunk 2077, and Bethesda's upcoming Starfield, and Elder Scrolls 6, with the former likely getting a release sometime in 2020 or shortly afterwards. What about that rumor about the dev kits being distributed? Well, it came from an article on a website called Semi-Accurate, which also claimed that the PS5 will use AMD's Navi as its base architecture, and a Zen CPU. Apparently, the PS5 will also have virtual reality components directly integrated into the system to further enhance its PSVR, perhaps making it a better competitor to its PC VR counterparts. The responses to these rumors have been mixed with excitement and skepticism. If dev kits are being distributed, that means that the PS5 system specs would be pretty much set in stone, which to some seems really premature. There's no doubt that considering Sony's past history with the PS3 and their improvements with developing the PS4, that they would be consulting major developers while working on the PS5, but to have kits already made would mean its specs would be incredibly aged by the time that 2020 rolls around. Dev kits would likely go out just before or around the time Sony announces the console itself. There's also a lot of speculation over whether or not the PS5 will have backwards compatibility. One of the biggest criticisms of the PS4 was that the system didn't allow you to play PS3 games, at least until PlayStation Plus, a subscription-based service, service came out. This being said, it seems likely that the PS5 would offer PS4 backwards compatibility, and likely boast an almost identical controller, in order to make use of all the successful titles that the PS4 console supports, alongside releasing all of the major blockbuster titles that we mentioned earlier. At the same time, it's still definitely a possibility that for profit's sake, Sony might not give the PS5 backwards compatibility after all. At the end of the day, people will still buy it regardless. Alright, there we have it, friends. Are you guys all excited for the PS5? When do you think it'll be announced? Give us a shout in those comments below and let us know. If you dug this video, hit that like button, and be sure to subscribe to Top 10 Gaming for all things video games, from updates to news to theories and lists. Thanks for watching, everybody. I'll catch you on the next video.